Let's look at it this way. I think Pharaoh Total War needs Mesopotamia, and I definitely think that it also needs a bit of Greece as well, if we're talking about it right now. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be showcasing you this. If we look at the sea peoples here, you can obviously see that there is an element of Mesopotamia in the background, but there's also an element of Asia Minor, Anatolia, and maybe a bit of Greece, but it's not that big. But now that you see the actual map design, you can see that there is some sort of Mesopotamian something. Something around here is either Assyria or Babylon or something like that. And here's my thoughts on what I think it should be. I think it's time that Mesopotamia was added to Total War Pharaoh, and Greece as well. Now, some likely outcomes could be is that they release Greece first and then they do Mesopotamia. And while I'm not a fan of this concept, because there's two things that could happen. One, you can have Troy, then they say, oh no, Troy's not the Troy map expansion or whatever parts of Greece or Asia Minor are added. They're not expanding the player base. So they don't expand the player base, we can't add Mesopotamia. And therefore they could say then we're not adding Mesopotamia. So that's something I don't want to see. What I want to see is that in the blog post, when they confirm it, they say that Mesopotamia is coming along with Greece. If we have something like that, I think we'll be in for a really good time. And why Mesopotamia? Because Mesopotamia is the cradle of civilization. Mesopotamia was a civilization that influenced much of the Bronze Age around this time. It influenced architecture, it influenced culture, it influenced trade, and sure, Mesopotamia is quite a long way away when you compare, let's say, from Memphis all the way to Babylon. But at the same time, these civilizations kept in touch with each other. And here's the thing, I think that it's time we start being more positive about Total War Pharaoh. I think it's time we see that the High Tide DLC, which I think is quite a good DLC by the way, is the start of something good. There is more good content coming for Pharaoh. And at the same time, I definitely think that if we're going to recoup the cost of, let's say, of Pharaoh having the Dynasty Edition and then whatever it is, then adding Mesopotamia will be great. Because there's a lot of things you can do with Mesopotamia. There's plenty of things you can do. Let's look at Kassite Babylon. Now, Kassite Babylon is pretty much a civilization that wants to resurge itself. It's already been destroyed quite a generation ago, but that doesn't mean that the Babylonians haven't continued to exist. And they are led by their leader, Marduk, the king of Babylon of the 3rd dynasty. And now, let's make this a different campaign. Let's make this campaign that the Babylonians want to rebuild the city of Babylon. And they want to restore Babylonian glory, which basically used to be a monopoly in Mesopotamia. But at the same time, they are weak. They are under the prestige of the Assyrians led by Ashur-dan. And the Assyrians are a powerful warlike civilization that are making sure that the Babylonians don't just try and revolt. I think this is a nice alternative. Now, of course, whether it has relevance to historical accuracy is another issue. This is the Bronze Age. And if we're talking about the Bronze Age here, alliances shift, civilization shift, everything shifts from one end to the other. There is always a degree of changing motives, loyalties, and boundaries. And this is something that I think Pharaoh can absolutely represent with his legendary lords, because that's what he's trying to show. Pharaoh is trying to show a game where these legendary lords begin to act like your Total War player. They begin to act as if they're the ones that are going to make the decisions and do everything X, Y, and Z. So I definitely think that for Babylon, we could definitely have something here. Let's look at the mighty Assyrians. The Assyrians at this time are a pretty powerful civilization, but they have not grown that far that they will become the feared machine, the feared war machine. They basically are the Mongols of the Bronze Age. They are basically the people that you don't want to conquer you. These people were brutal, and if you read descriptions about them, they were some of the most toughest. They were invaders that nobody ever wanted, and it was no doubt that their capital pretty much burnt once Assyria was sacked, and all traces of Assyrians' heritage or legacies, they were removed because they were that bad in terms of conquering. But in terms of civilian administration, I think they were quite different. But the Assyrians were not that popular. People bowed to them because of submission and fear. And the Assyrians were like this powerful mega civilization. In fact, I don't know if they could be compared to the Klingons. I would compare them to the Klingons. Now, I don't know that's a sci-fi reference, but when you compare the warlike traits of the Assyrians and the Klingons, there is some definite similarities. But that's the thing. The Assyrians, by the time of the Bronze Age, were starting to emerge as a powerful war kingdom. And I'm sure the Mesopotamians did deal with their own equivalent of the sea peoples that they were fighting against. But at the same time, Assyria also in northern Mesopotamia. But at the same time, Assyria did have problems as well. It dealt with Elam, which was a warlike kingdom based in present-day, southern Iran, but we also had the kingdom of the Elamites as well. While this invasion and migrations are happening within the Bronze Age, that is not suffice to say to the fact that the Assyrians and Babylonians could also have been affected as well. Because if we are saying that the Bronze Age collapsed, the sea peoples that are going around and ransacking and doing things, then it will affect other areas as well. But we don't know how far that is, and we need more evidence to support this claim. Alright, here's the thing. The networks of trade and diplomacy have been completely destroyed with the collapse of the Bronze Age, and this is what this game is trying to show. But in this game you can reverse the collapse of the Bronze Age and keep the networks of trade and diplomacy. So I definitely think that Assyria as a faction would be an excellent choice. Assyria is only starting to emerge, only starting to become like this big powerful thing. So even if they did lose territory towards the Elams, they were also troubling and harassing the Hittites as well. By the end of the 12th century, which is where Pharaoh Total War set in, Elam has waned after its defeat by King Nebuchadnezzar. Right? But if we're going to have a look at who's ruling Mesopotamia right now, we would have, or let's say Babylon, let's have Marduk, and for Elam we have King Nahunte. Okay? Now, when I'm trying to understand the Bronze Age, it is very confusing because there's so much differentiation between dates. But from what I am reading so far, I've read that the Babylonians recovered and they did manage to defeat the powerful Elamite Kingdom before the Assyrians then came in and basically just crushed them before they have anything else to do. So, Elam is in a very interesting position. Elam can either go and take Babylon and defeat the Assyrians, or it can become a vassal state under the Assyrians, or it can decide to emerge and become a new kingdom, a new empire. Total War has always been about empires. That's evident from the very first Total War game itself. Total War is a game that I think that would do so well if we added these three factions. Now, I've not gone into too much detail for all of these factions. The thing I have done is to give you an idea of what civilizations could be added if there was a Mesopotamian expansion. And I definitely think that they could do some really fantastic stuff here. So this is my plea to the developers at Creative Assembly. Please, please, please confirm that you are in that blog post saying that you are given Mesopotamia. Please confirm it. Just confirm that Mesopotamia is coming. And please don't do a Mesopotamia is cancelled after 3 months while we wait for news. We want Mesopotamia. You guys have liked my post. I'm putting the post up here right now. Right? They liked the post. And they told me that with new cultures, you get new city battle maps. So why don't we have that? Add Mesopotamia. And let's go to Greece briefly. Now, if we're talking about the Mycenaean kingdoms, I definitely think that we are definitely going to have a lot of Mycenaean kingdoms. We're going to be having areas of Asia Minor being filled with Mycenaeans, with Trojans, with the kingdom of Troy perhaps. But there is one question that I do have. For some weird reason I couldn't find the starting date for Troy. But if you're going to make Troy and you're going to combine it with Pharaoh, that is the most logical explanation that I'm seeing so far. Because that's the only way it's going to work. How else are you going to include these two massive map areas? Because this will not just be 185 settlements, this will be more than above it. But at the same time, while this is more likely to come as a result, I am still appealing to the devs. You know we want Mesopotamia. You know that if you go into the Pharaoh Discord, the Pharaoh Reddit, or the Reddit of Total War, everybody is asking for Pharaoh having Mesopotamia. There's so many people that have said the same thing, that they don't want a simple, small, limited time frame. Basically, they want this massive, gigantic sandbox Bronze Age game. And I'm sure you guys at Creative Assembly Sophia want the very same thing. We want massive empires, because Pharaoh Total War is the foundation of something very good, right? So let's have Mesopotamia and let's have Greece, but Mesopotamia first, because I think Greece can be added more or less like as a free update, as a free expansion, that this part of Greece is going to be here. And maybe if you include some of the characters from Troy, I think that would be an absolutely excellent thing. And why shouldn't we have the characters from Troy? That's another question. Because the contrast in personalities between Achilles and Ramesses and different characters would actually work. You could make some sort of a mini story or something with the destruction of Troy. Maybe you could do something here. I don't know if Troy will come, and I don't know if we'll get Greece, but I do know one thing. Mesopotamia has to come, and it comes when fans like me and others talk about it and discuss about it. We have discussed it so many times. I feel like, guys, just add Mesopotamia. Add Mesopotamia. Give it the love it needs. Give it what it wants. Give Pharaoh that love that we ultimately deserve. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, Sophia, you stuck with this game. You have been consistent and you've been talking with us as the fans. We want Mesopotamia and we want Greece, but Mesopotamia first. We want a confirmation that Mesopotamia is coming and we're going to get new factions, new city battle maps. Do you see how excited I'm getting when I'm talking about this? This is what we need for Pharaoh. But here's the thing. If more content is added to this game, if more balancing is done to this game, if Mesopotamia and Greece are added into this game, then is that not a good thing rather than a bad thing? Why should we, as fans of the Bronze Age, settle for a game that doesn't even fully represent the Bronze Age? We, as fans of the Bronze Age, should have a game that represents the entire Bronze Age. And that is the purpose of my video. The purpose of the video is to say to Creative Assembly Sophia, add Mesopotamia, add Greece, give us what we need. So if they can just do that, trust me, Pharaoh Total War may not be in the big player base counts now, but give it a few years and it might end up becoming a quite underappreciated title. It might end up becoming even better. So this is what I say, and for people who are watching on the Reddit, give me your opinion. Does this game need Mesopotamia? And how do you see Mesopotamia working? I want to know what your opinions are, how you guys want to see it, and please leave a comment in the comment box down below or anywhere. Just leave it. We know that Creative Assembly is currently working on the Blood DLC, plus they're also working on the updated campaign mechanics. And I would say with the updated campaign mechanics, please make sure it's a proper family tree, not a simple one general inherits a line or whatever. And please give us family tree, give us Mesopotamia. I've had enough. I've discussed it so long. I've discussed it so much. that I want to see what the fans of Pharaoh want. What do you want right now for Pharaoh Total War? Alright? So let me know what you think, and don't forget to leave a like, share, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.